Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of We Watch Shudder. My name is JD, and who's here with me? Crickets. Silence. Yeah, it's just me, guys. First time ever. I went to the Chicago Horror Film Festival. Michelle couldn't join me because she had previous obligations with her big girl job that took her to Las Vegas. But I got to talk with a bunch of independent filmmakers at the festival, and we're going to play those interviews for you here today. I want to say a couple of things before we get into those. First of all, Chicago Horror Film Festival 2024 Part 1 was a blast. I didn't get to see nearly as many movies as I wanted to see because there's just so much going on, and there's all sorts of networking and just other things. It was busy and chaos and just so much fun. I saw a lot of great films. In fact, it's something that I said I started to feel like a broken record. Said it many, many times. Obviously, there were things I saw that I enjoyed more than other things, but there was nothing I saw all weekend long that made me say, man, I wish I had spent that time somewhere else. There was something to appreciate in everything that I saw this weekend, and I only saw a small fraction of the films, but, you know, with a sample like that, I have to assume the quality was great across the board. I get a chance coming up later this week to watch all of the films that I missed in a streaming window. And there's several of them that I'm going to have to catch up with from our guests that we're talking with today. Some of these are folks whose films I saw before I interviewed them. Some of them are folks whose films I saw after I interviewed them. And some are people whose films I still have not been able to see. But we talked about a dozen different movies, 19 different guests. I want to send a big shout out to CJ Vecchio and everybody involved with the Chicago Horror Film Festival for letting us be a part of their event and giving us this opportunity to chat with these folks and share their work out there with our little corner of the internet. Most of these films are not going to be available for public consumption right now, but we've got Instagram links, we've got follows, that's all going to be down in the episode description for you to be able to track them and keep an eye on when they become available. We're going to be tracking them as well, and we will probably let you know unless we completely blank and it slips our minds when those films become available. These are things that I got to see that a lot of people won't get to see, and I want you to see them. Guys, there is so much great horror filmmaking talent out there right now, and man, I had a really, really good time. So a couple of quick things about the interviews. The first interview you're going to hear, because I'm going to play these in the order I recorded them. The first interview and the last two were not recorded during our Sunday afternoon recording session. The first one was recorded Saturday night, and the last two were recorded Sunday evening after the recording session had finalized. So the audio on those is a little different. I recorded those just right into my cell phone on a voice recorder. Still very listenable. I just want to make sure you're aware of that quality issue. Then with the recordings that we made during the Sunday window, I brought a nice condenser mic to record the entire room in case we did have some people who stopped by and just wanted to listen to the interviews and maybe had some questions of their own. But as it turns out, it's a horror film festival, and everybody was more interested in actually watching horror films than listening to me talk to horror filmmakers. So then, because they're like, well, we'll be able to listen to this when the recording comes out. Why would I sit here and listen to it now? Fair point, guys. So we use that condenser mic, so you're going to get some background sound from the other recordings. But again, still very listenable, and you'll be able to understand everything that's going on. I do want to make one quick apology to Sarah Young. She's going to be the second interview you hear. It was the first one we recorded on Sunday afternoon. I have no idea what happened, but there's a little static running through the entire thing. Again, it's still very listenable. You'll be able to understand the entire conversation. It's just an annoying little static that runs through for the duration of the interview, about 8 minutes or so. Sarah, I know you're listening. I'm very sorry we weren't able to get that cleaned up for you, but we are still getting the word out about your film. And yeah, that's where we are right now, guys. I'm just going to let these play, and then I'll put a little bumper music in between them because the filmmakers all introduce themselves right away at the beginning and that good stuff. So they're just going to play in the order they were recorded. And I hope you find at least something that sounds like you want to keep an eye out for it. Follow all of these folks all over social media. Again, everything you need to keep track of them is in the episode description wherever you're streaming this. That's enough babbling. Let's go ahead and get on with the interviews. We're going to start with one that is very near and dear to my heart. I got to tell you a quick story on our way into this. This is how this interview happened Saturday night. I was in screening room 2 watching some shorts, and I was sitting in a row. I actually walked into the room in the dark because that's what happens at a lot of these things. And as I was walking down the row to get to my seat, I accidentally bumped this lady in the row in front of me, and I felt real bad. I apologized. But then I'm sitting there watching these movies, and it's her, and there's this young person right next to her. And this movie pops up on screen, and they get real excited, right? It becomes very clear that they are either involved with this film or they know people who are involved with this film. Anyway, long story short, the film wraps. I've slowly figured out that this young person in front of me is the person on screen, and it turns out the lady who I bumped was the writer-director of the film. And I didn't even wait for the credits to finish. I told them immediately after it was done that I thought their movie was great and that we'd love to get a chance to chat with them. I even made sure, because his mother was there, to get the young man's mother's permission, because I'm a goddamn professional, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going to go ahead and get into these interviews. Enjoy this first one. It was a good time. And we'll see you on the other side of, about 90 minutes of chats. Oh, I almost forgot. If there's a specific interview you're looking for, also in the episode description, I've got time codes stamped so you can skip right to them if you'd like. Now, on with the show. All right, so we're out here in the lobby. It's been a great day here for Saturday at the Chicago Horror Film Festival. But I actually just got out of a screening of a short film called ARO'S WORLD, and wanted to immediately. I just happened to be in the theater, sitting right behind writer and director Vibha, and what's your last name?
Kulkarni.
Oh, say again?
Vibha Kulkarni.
There you go. And also one of the stars of the film. And what is your name?
Kaya Johnson.
And Kaya, how old are you?
10.
Kaya is 10 and played one of the lead roles in this film and was fantastic. And we just wanted to talk to Kaya and Vibha here for a little while and promote their movie a little bit. So, Kaya, this is the first movie that you've ever been a part of at 10 years old?
Absolutely.
Not quite a seasoned veteran yet. Was it a lot of, did you enjoy it? Was it a lot of fun? A lot of hard work, though?
Mm-hmm, both.
Yeah, both. Yeah, excellent. You looking to do more acting going forward?
Yes.
Yeah? Got any projects you're already working on?
Oh, I wish.
Well, I'm sure after this one gets around, there'll be a lot of people who are going to be wanting to work with you. I really enjoyed your performance. I thought it was excellent, especially for somebody your age. I really appreciate you talking with us today.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Vibha, and so is this also your first project, or have you've been making films for a while, or?
So this was my thesis project at AFI.
Oh, excellent.
This was my graduation project, and I co-wrote it with my producer, whose personal story this is. It's based on his personal story.
Oh, okay. That's awesome. And then, so the movie's about a puppet who sort of takes control of a child after, and what I love about it is you're seeing this more in horror these days, where a lot of the stories are rooted in trauma, right? Like terrible things that happen and the way those can play out. And I thought this was excellently written. I mean, what was the running time? About 10 minutes?
12
minutes?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought for that amount of time, I thought you developed a fantastic story. Kaya, obviously, a big help for that.
Yeah.
But no, I
really enjoyed your film. I wanted to get a chance to tell you that more than anything and get a chance to share. Have you been going around? Is this your first festival, or have you been around?
This is our first festival.
Okay.
Yes.
Are there any more coming up?
Well, yes, we have an early notification. It's not officially out yet, so I don't want to reveal this yet. Sure. But it's going to be in July.
Excellent. Well, I definitely will be telling people to keep an eye out for the film. What are you going for next? What's your next project?
So I'm currently developing a horror comedy, but I'm also working on a rom-com.
Okay.
So that's a little different.
Sure.
But thematically, it's the same, though. It's very strange that you might feel, but this film was about like self-acceptance, and my rom-com is also about self-acceptance.
That's it's always nice when you can have something. I love the trappings of horror, right?
Yes.
But when you can put something a little bit more behind. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the stupid exploitation film as much as anybody, but I really enjoyed this. I wish you the best of success with your film. Thank you for letting us talk with you for a few minutes.
Thank you.
Kaya, thank you.
You're so welcome.
Good luck with your career. All right, so we are here at the Chicago Horror Film Festival. Sunday day block in the lounge just wrapped up. And we're going to talk to some filmmakers, guys. I've been here since yesterday. I missed the first screening on Friday evening because it was just a 2-day thing when I bought my tickets and travel, and then it was such a big deal it added a 5th screening. But so yeah, we're going to talk to some filmmakers. We're going to talk about some movies, some stuff I have seen, some stuff I haven't seen. I've been saying it all weekend. Obviously, there's stuff I've seen that I enjoyed more than other stuff, but there's nothing I have seen that made me say, man, I wish I had seen something else. Everything I've seen has something about it that is admirable and appreciable. This is our first time here in Chicago, and I'm excited to talk to some people. I have my first guest here. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Sarah Young.
And Sarah is are you writer and director?
Yes.
Writer and director of a short called Not Him. I didn't get to see the whole thing. I caught the last few minutes of it as I was going in to see the following film. And then, but it was one that I said, okay, immediately I'm like, when our streaming opportunity hits, because anything we're not able to see, we get to go back and watch on streaming next week. I immediately said, this is one that I need to go back and watch the entire thing. Those last few minutes were very compelling. But I'm not sure I understand exactly what's going on, but there was enough to make me say, yeah, let's find out. So I guess, first of all, Sarah, tell everybody a little bit about Not Him. We don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but just give them an idea of what the movie is about.
Absolutely. Not Him is a short horror thriller. I think of it in the terms of like Gaslight meets The Shining. It's a story about a wife who believes that her husband is possessed, but she can't get anyone to believe her.
Yeah, and some very subtle special effects that I saw in the end. It's something that I mean, obviously I like the big splattery horror, but as I get older, as I've seen more things, I appreciate subtlety in horror more and more. And I don't want to give it away, but there was a thing you were doing with one of the characters right at the end that I almost didn't notice. It was like almost subliminal, and that immediately was enough to give me an idea of what might be going on in this story. So how did this movie? Is this have you been making films for a while, or?
I'm primarily a director.
Okay.
I'm a director for hire, so I've been lucky enough to be involved with a lot of short films and a few web series. This was my first time writing and directing.
Okay.
So this one feels different.
Nice.
It's really me on a plate.
And do you work in horror specifically a lot, or is that just kind of one world you come into?
This is my first time. Again, because this was my project, I wanted to do horror. I love horror. I'm a big believer in genre filmmaking, and specifically I'm a believer in genre filmmaking to facilitate difficult conversations and take on challenging topics in a very accessible way.
And that's something that I'm probably going to say a bunch here, because I'm hoping to talk to a more, shall we say, diverse array of filmmakers, and it's something I've already, again, said to several people. Obviously, diversity and representation and getting all those voices out matters, but also for us as horror fans, not to put it too much on the nose, but we've seen so much of what white dudes can do in horror, right? Straight white dudes. And not even just for wanting the diversity, I just want new stories, right? I want, like, you can still make quality stuff. I'm not saying there's no place for white male directors anymore, but I just love that we're seeing more of that, not just directors, but writer-directors. And what I especially love is this. You've been working, right? You do a lot of work, but it's work for hire.
Yeah.
And when you get the opportunity, horror is where you come to, and I think we're getting more and more people like that. Tell us about your history as a horror fan. Like, is there a specific moment you can remember where the light went off and you were like, oh, this is for me?
Well, recently, when I was writing this script, the film that was in my head most was The Babadook.
Okay, yeah.
Because that's a film that is tackling grief, very, very real things told through the metaphor of the supernatural.
Yes.
And I'm all about that.
Yeah, and you're seeing a lot of that these days. I really appreciate. The only thing I can think of to call it is trauma horror, but that sounds again a little on the nose. But just that idea of horrific art as a way to, I think, for a lot of filmmakers and a lot of performers, process their own trauma.
Yeah.
Right. Giving the audiences an opportunity to do that vicariously as well, but really as a creative. Processing through a lot of that stuff, and we're getting, again, out of that world, so many interesting stories. The Babadook, the first time I saw it, frankly, I think I just didn't get it, and I didn't care for it, and I let it sit for a while, and I came back and watched it again after having gone through some other things, because I think it's recognizable as a film about trauma and grief, but again, I'm not a woman, I'm not a mother, so I didn't quite catch what it was doing. And then I went through some films where I got things that were a little closer to my perspective. And then when I came back to it, I had more of an ability to kind of put myself in that place, even though it wasn't specific to me. And I was like, oh, I get it. It's about how, well, I don't want to spoil it, but it's about how this terrible thing happened. But what I also love about it is, in a lot of these films, there's within the framework of the film, it's not a metaphor. It's really happening.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So without spoiling too much, in your film, is that something you set out to play on specifically, like that idea of is this real? Is this psychological? What's going on here?
Absolutely, and I'm so glad you caught that much just in the couple of minutes that you
yeah.
saw. That's a huge compliment. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. So this, without spoilers, this is a story about, it's dealing with domestic violence.
Yeah.
So it's very much about believing victims and about the struggles that people encounter when they are trying to express what's happening to them to other people. And there's so many reasons why you're not believed, why you're dismissed, So it was really important to me in this story to deal with a person that is struggling to be seen, is struggling to have her danger and her pain recognized by others. And it was important to me to create that doubt with our female protagonist, that there's a version of this film where she is just unhinged,
right,
where she is just unstable, but there's a version where she's absolutely right and she needs help.
Are you familiar with a film that came out just a couple of years ago? I know it was directed by, I'm not sure if she wrote it also, but Natasha Kermani, is a film called Lucky. It was a Shudder, I think it was either an original or an exclusive. It's still available there. Deals with a lot of those same ideas. Again, from, I think, actually, now that I think about it, the star and the director co-wrote it together. And it's about domestic violence and women not being taken seriously. And it also, I don't know, it's the first movie along that line that I saw where I was like, okay, I see what they're doing now. I understand what these voices are trying to say, and that's, again, part of why I can decipher most white dude horror real quick. It's as important as it is from a social perspective, it's also like, it's been a while since I wasn't sure what was going on in the movie, right? So I appreciate that very much. Is this the first festival the film is played at?
No, actually, we're kind of in the middle of the run. It's been a really good time because, interestingly enough, I think because the film is subtle and it does sort of dance between being full-on genre horror and just being an interesting drama.
Sure.
We've had a very interesting run where we've been at genre fests like this, and we love being here, and we've been in just regular fests in their regular drama block, and it's been really interesting to see.
You're getting a lot more of that too in horror. It's actually something. I talk about something I like to call the Mike Flanagan scare.
Yes.
Which it was inspired by look. All I have to say is the best jump scare in The Haunting of Hill House. Everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about. But what I love about it is it's not where you're just suddenly jumped at by something. And it works because there was just noise and other stuff happening here, and it's just a surprise. What I'm talking about is there are people doing this thing now where you completely forget you're watching a horror film.
Yep.
And that is the most effective kind of surprise to me, is I've completely forgotten that I'm even supposed to be scared at times. And I love those sorts of moments. I love seeing more, like, this elevated horror term that's going around. I don't like the terminology, but I like the idea, right? I like that horror is, as much as I appreciate exploitation horror, I think there were a lot of people who had an idea that that's just all horror was.
Yeah.
And we're getting back to, nobody calls The Exorcist elevated horror, right? It's just a great classic horror film. And we're getting back to more of that where people are, they're like, hey, we maybe forgot for a while that you can tell very deep, profound stories in this realm. And I'm excited to see the story that you have to tell. Like I said, just based on the last few bits that I saw. What is the running time of the film?
Just under 15 minutes.
Okay, yeah, so I caught the last little bit of it. I'm very looking forward to seeing it. Is it available for people to watch at home yet, or are you keeping it just on the festivals right now?
Not yet, because we're still in competition.
Sure.
We still have we have a pretty strong looking summer.
Excellent.
But I'm thinking in the fall, if
Okay.
we've gone through our festival run, I'll be looking to get distribution or get it on streaming, because I definitely do want to get it out there.
And where online can people keep up with you to, if they're interested in hearing about it and knowing when it's available?
Absolutely. My Instagram is a great way to keep track of the film. That's Sarah Young, SarahYoung, SF, Sarah Young, SF, because I made it when I was in San Francisco and thought I would live there forever.
All right, Sarah, again, thank you so much for joining us here. I'm glad we got a chance to talk about your film for a little while. Hopefully we can get some eyes on it through our little channel here, and we wish you the best of luck as you go forward in competition.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, so back with more guests here on We Watch Shudder. Fellas, go ahead and introduce yourselves right off the bat here.
My name is Tanner J. Perry, writer and director of Skin.
And I am Griffin William Riley. I am the cinematographer of Skin.
Yeah, and Skin is a movie that just played maybe about an hour ago here at the festival. I saw it. I've already chatted with the fellas a little bit about it. Guys, I don't mean to sound like I'm buttering stuff up. I've had time to. This might be, at least for me, my favorite thing I've seen so far at the festival. There have been a lot of great films, but this, I don't know what it is. It just hit all of my right buttons. It's smart. It's well written. It's got something to say without being like oppressive about it. It's right there for anybody who's open to seeing it. I guess for anybody who is listening and interested, give them just a quick synopsis of what Skin is about.
Okay, Skin is about a young woman and her cousin who get a flat on the side of the road in the middle of the Arizona desert. While changing it, they hear a cry for help out far in the middle of nowhere. After running out to kind of investigate, we flash forward a bit, and that young woman is now on the side of the road covered in blood. She's picked up and brought to a local diner where there's some not-so-friendly diner patrons.
Yeah.
And she kind of has to figure out with the local sheriff what exactly happened to her.
Mm-hmm.
Some people know what happened to her. Some people are just making assumptions. But overall, wanted to make it a suspenseful.
Yeah, and like I mentioned to you a moment ago when we were chatting prior, short horror films serve a variety of different purposes, and this is one of those shorts that I saw that immediately made me say, Jesus, there's a lot of story here, and I would like to see these fellas get a chance to tell it. Like, this is something that I would love to see expanded. And something I've also been talking about through the whole weekend is just more diverse voices, right? More, just for nothing more than for new stories or new angles on stories. And I feel like there are, I think some people try to add a little social commentary to their films that maybe punches a little too aggressively for a lot of people. What I love about this is, at least what I picked up on here, very subtle. The visual elements of the creature, I love the way you shot that. You know, we never, ever get a good full look at it, just slight hints. It evokes a lot of ideas without being super aggressive about them. Is adding some kind of social commentary to your work something that you've always set out to do, something that kind of came as you were working on it? How did that come about?
Definitely this one came about, I will say, as working on it. I, for the longest time, for whatever reason, struggled with, I kind of was in that mindset of like, well, I don't want to like tell people something. I just kind of want to entertain people. But as I continued to write and work on stuff, I was like, well, no, there is something here.
Yeah.
And especially with getting into it, I initially just started of, I don't see a lot of horror in the desert. I don't see a lot of horror
in the
centering
daylight.
Black people. I don't see a lot of daylight horror. And so it was kind of those three things of like, okay, what's a story I can tell with that? And it actually started out as a skinwalker project.
Okay.
And through some research, I found that the Navajo people prefer that their stories aren't told by non-Navajo people. So then I kind of shifted into making my own creature, and from that was like, okay, what if we played with the idea of black skin and telling a story about kind of the horrors of being black, not only of like an actual monster chasing after you, but then also of like her being in that uncomfortable space with those diners of like, you've been through a really rough time, now it's going to get a little bit rougher.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that diner scene specifically. What I love about that is I feel like, to me, the tone of it and just the almost the intensity of the diner's reactions. I think a lot of people would see that, and it's very reminiscent of like something that would be set more in like the 50s or something like that. Yeah. And what I like about that is just the very clear statement that like a lot of you don't know that this is still exactly the way it is. Like this is exactly how it has not changed at all. And I love the way that was presented, that just that little bit of melodrama and the slight overreacting or overacting of what they were doing. I really loved that. I thought it was very well done.
Yeah, well, so Tanner and I, we both grew up in Arizona, and like exactly like you're saying, that's a real thing. I grew up off-roading with my dad, and he is a white man, and we would go into all these like random, very rural places, whether it's a diner or a bar or whatever, and he walks in, no problem, he's one of them. But then I walk in, and you definitely see there are some eyes looking at you. And I mean, my little sister, she would be off-roading with me super frequently, and we would not joke about like being happy that we basically have a white chaperone in some of these areas, because if we were there by ourselves, these conversations could be really different, especially like, I mean, you go into the place, nothing's probably going to happen to you. But if you get a flat tire on your way back, like, who knows who that person to help you, in big quotes, would be.
And that was definitely something we talked about a lot in pre-production, too, is kind of like, oh, wouldn't they have, like, Wi-Fi or something like that? And it was something that I was very firm on of, like, this is a town that's kind of stuck in time.
I overheard you guys talking out in the lobby. Apparently, and this is something I didn't even know. Apparently there's like a Confederate connection to Arizona.
Yeah, so doing some research and kind of thinking in the future about like what a feature would include, and I did want to have some kind of real history in there, and I did some research on Arizona, and I found out that while it wasn't a state yet, a lot of the West was still kind of part of Union territories. but Arizona as a state specifically was a Confederate territory.
Okay.
And so that was something we kind of wanted to play with the history, and especially this town, is that it is a very old town. At some point it probably was like a Confederate base for a little bit, and
Sure.
that a lot of the people with those, you know, ideals and mindset stayed there, passed it on for generations, and it's just kind of become this, again, town stuck
Almost
a bit
like Mississippi of the West, sort of kind
Pretty
of vibe.
much, yeah.
Yeah. Another thing, and honestly, I almost felt a little bad about it. The character's name is Ocean, and you have that moment where the sheriff is like, oh, like the water. I had myself made that assumption that that's exactly what her name was, and so even that, just a little moment of like, oh, there's a small little educational bits in there, just little bits of cultural awareness and things that, you know, you might just not even stop to consider, you know, that perspective that, oh, everybody's name is somehow an English European name, right? And they immediately go to they immediately go to that.
That actually, that joke, shout out to our lead actor, Sheriff Dotson, Vlad Gibran, very close friend of mine. He actually brought that idea to me like a day before the shoot, because excuse me, sorry, I wrote her name Ocean because I wanted it's the Yoruba goddess of beauty.
Okay.
And I kind of wanted the name to have something to do with like desire and skin and that kind of angle. And so originally in the script, she just says her name, spells it out, and they move on. And Vlad texted me and he was like, hey, what if when she says her name, he's like, oh, like the water. And she's the one to be like, no,
right.
It's actually a thing.
Yeah, that's,
and that idea was born. And
the fact that that's literally the reaction I had says that he was exactly right. Like, that's a perfect moment.
Yep.
Right? And it gives you a chance to, again, just put a little bit of extra something in there without, like, I think as much as I understand the motivation to be somewhat aggressive with as much as people have been marginalized and pushed aside, you can't do that for long without the reaction becoming more and more aggressive. But at the same time, I feel like when you can do it in a more subtle way, there's power there where you can sneak that stuff in on people. 100%. And I think you did that really well. Griffin, as DP, again, we talked just a moment ago about how you don't necessarily see a lot of horror in the daylight.
Yeah.
What were some of the challenges for you shooting in that environment?
Needing neutral density filters. It was just bright out there. The deserts are bright.
Yeah, it's so much light.
It actually wasn't that hot because we were filming in January. So yeah, and deserts
smart.
get cold too.
Right.
It was very cold.
Yeah, especially end of day. It was so windy. Everyone was miserable.
I definitely think your biggest challenge, at least that I felt like I gave you, was like trying to build suspense with the creature. Because I will say, actually, we did a full makeup. We do have like a very specific visual aspect to the creature, but as you kind of mentioned, we barely see it. And a lot of that was actually, hats off to Griffin on that, because I was like, let's get up in there and we'll get this close up and and he was like, or if we just shoot really far away,
I
it
love
makes
that.
it so much eerier. And he really made the suspense happen through that.
Deserts, you always have the feeling of, like, I mean, all throughout media and movies, you always like have the sensation of like a mirage, like the thing in the distance. You aren't sure if you really see it. And
I thought that worked perfectly.
Yeah, and when you're in a desert, you also immediately realize how freaking big it is too. So like, well, we shot on anamorphic lenses that day, so that way we could get incredibly wide expanses. And if I remember correctly, I actually don't remember which lens we shot, the specific shot of him in the distance, but was it the 100? Just very far away. Yeah. I mean, that way, I mean, that, I don't know. It was I had the idea of just having the like very tiniest kernel of something haunting in the distance where you're like, am I seeing that? And then it's slowly starting to turn and realizing, no, there's absolutely something out there. Right. And it's like locked in. It is watching me.
Yeah, I found that whole sequence very, very effective. Very, I mean, exactly what you needed to do. And again, one of the things that then also made me say, oh, there's clearly more story here, right? And that gives you the perfect opportunity to sort of play on and build from there, right? And I thought that was fantastic. You said this is the first festival the film has played at?
Yeah, so this is Skin's world premiere.
Awesome.
Here.
Well, it was well attended, and I thought the reaction was really strong. I thought it was great. Do you have more festivals coming up?
We haven't been accepted to any. We are awaiting a couple in LA, a couple in Miami.
Well, if any of you are listening, book this film. Get it on your festival. It's fantastic.
Please do.
Yeah, and obviously I know you're going to be playing the festival circuit for a while, hoping to make it available for public consumption sometime soon? Or?
Yes, actually, we were just talking about that recently. Our production company, Spider-Bite Entertainment, you can see all of our films at spiderbiteentertainment.com, but we every year do a short film for Halloween.
Nice.
And so we actually calculated Skin's festival run will end pre-Halloween, so we plan to release it publicly on Halloween of this year.
Awesome. So people who want to keep up with that, again, what was the website?
SpiderBiteEntertainment.com.
And are you on the social medias?
We are. Our Instagram is SpiderBiteENT, just at SpiderBiteENT. My personal one, which you can find everything, is Tanner John John Perry Perry. Griffin.
Yes, my Instagram is at Dark Crustacean. D-A-R-K.
Love it.
Yeah, it's D-A-R-K-C-R-U-S-T-A-C-E-A-N. Yeah.
I also have trouble spelling. I've known you
Awesome.
for years. I have trouble spelling it every time.
Well, fellas, I really wish you the best of luck with the film. I hope a lot more people get to put some eyes on it, and hopefully you get an opportunity to, if not do more with this, continue working on it. You said this was your first budgeted production?
Yes, this was our first production with like a real budget. We had a full crew, everything. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so many people making fantastic movies and showing them here, and it's just a matter of getting the right eyes on them, and I hope the right eyes find your film. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you don't mind, I would like to add one thing.
Absolutely, please.
If it wasn't clear based off of some of this thematic conversation here, Tanner and I were both mixed, where
Yes.
we come from a black and white household.
Correct.
And I mean, like I was alluding to some of the stuff in Arizona. Like it's definitely something where, yeah, these things are real and they do still exist, like these types of weird towns. But yeah, we don't want to hit you over your head with it, you know? Like we aren't going to sit here and try to jam morals in there because I don't.
And there are not just one, but multiple white characters in the film who are perfectly accepting, right?
Yeah,
It's not this complete demonization thing. We want to make that very
no,
clear.
that was actually something, even just like to go into it a little bit deeper, is like while we were coloring the film, the character of the driver, Ricky, who's the one who picks up Ocean, actually with my colors we were talking and we were kind of like, anything Ricky's in and while he's there, we want the diner to feel very warm, because he is
I didn't even notice that, but that's smart.
And the second that he leaves, the colors get very cold.
That's
and we
awesome.
went a lot more of like, hey, that person who was there to help us, he's gone now, and we're a little bit scared, and we're a little bit alone now. And as the film progresses and our sheriff gets a little bit warmer, again, the colors get warmer, and each time we introduce another character that's not as friendly, we change the color a bit. So we really did kind of want to visually cue that, like, hey, not everyone here is a bad person, but you definitely have to be alert.
Well, fellas, I could sit here and have things pop to mind for another hour or so. Thank you for stopping to talk with us. We're going to chat with some other people here for a while, but we'll definitely be keeping an eye on your work from here.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Appreciate it,
man.
All right, so we're back with another filmmaker guest here on We Watch Shudder, live from the Chicago Horror Film Festival. Shigorr is not a thing, but it should be. Go ahead, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Sarah Falkiner.
And Sarah, you have a film that played here at the festival just earlier today, correct? I believe titled Crimson?
Yes, Crimson.
Okay. Yeah, I unfortunately wasn't able to catch the film. I intend to catch it when streaming comes around for the festival goers. But for our listeners, as you know, obviously we want to get the word out about your film. Tell them a little bit about what your film is about.
Well, I'm going to hit you with the log line.
Gotcha.
A woman meets her nightmares as she lives within a cycle of unspeakable physical and emotional pain.
Okay. It's something, honestly, that I've noticed a lot of around here, and it's something that I love about horror currently. We've been talking to a lot of people about it, is just more diverse voices, right?
Yes.
If for no other reason than for new stories and new angles on stories, just to give us a new perspective on things. I'm assuming that's probably a big deal to you as a female filmmaker, yeah?
Yes, absolutely. I am so much about amplifying the stories of people that have often not had a microphone or camera to tell their stories. And I'm honored to work with a very diverse cast and crew, which my favorite actress to work with is here with me right now. She co-wrote the film with me. She keeps me in line, my lead actress, Senyah Haynes. And anytime I have a chance to amplify any story or something that has affected her or somehow touched her life, I enjoy the opportunity. So, Senyah, how do you feel about Crimson?
Well, a good question. Lots of feelings, but I'm really honored that it was able to play here. I second that emotion about having a variety of stories heard, not just for people who are not used to listening to those stories, but for people who live those stories to hear their own stories.
Yes.
So I'm really happy to be here and be part of changing the narrative. And Crimson is very near and dear to my heart in 1,000 ways, and I think it's important to have social issues uplifted by any means possible. And there are folks who are all into the horror genre who might not go look at a documentary or some kind of socially conscious film. So we'll bring it to you. We will come to you where you're at.
Absolutely.
Basically. Yeah,
you got to meet them where they're at, and I'm excited to see more and more of that happening. Just on a number of levels. You mentioned to me earlier when we were chatting before the recording that you just recently became a filmmaker, just like a couple of years ago, correct? Got into filmmaking?
Yeah, it's been about 5.5 years that I've been making films, and I have 12 short films under my belt right now, and I find that I lean more towards narrative and social justice films. But I don't want to get categorized that I only make one type of film. And actually the inspiration for this film was sometimes reality can provide its own horror story. Yeah. And what you and I were talking about, JD, is sometimes the horror that's really scary is not the one with the most splatters or the most blood spills.
It's the one that gets into your brain and you can't shake.
Yes.
You know, you can't put a Band-Aid on that.
No, you can't. And I feel like Crimson is an example of that. And it's something that many women can relate to. And I just turned it into a horror film. And the way Senyah and I work together is that I kind of heard a story and all of a sudden I'm like, my God, this is a short film. People need to know about this. And so I kind of write what we lovingly call a skeleton horror, and then she kind of fills it out and adds all the curves, and then it becomes something that her and I work together with.
So co-written?
Yes.
Correct. Excellent.
Yes.
And I like that dynamic where the person who's going to be embodying that character is contributing to the creation of that character.
Absolutely.
That's
important.
very essential. I think in a lot of ways, and we unfortunately don't see as much of it as I wish we could. Senyah, what's your history with writing and acting? Is this something you've been doing for a while, or?
Yes, my whole adult life. I wrote my first screenplay in college more than 20 years ago.
Okay.
Not to date myself, but yes, I've been a filmmaker for several years. I went to school for film, but I have found myself in front of the camera. I've been an actress forever, but I used to be a theater actress. I went into film when time was an issue for me, but I love writing. The word is. We're very old friends, and I write in all formats. I'm a children's book author. I write short stories, screenplays, all the things. So
yeah. Well, and for me personally, there's a lot of different flavors out there, and abstraction is beautiful, and that sort of thing. But for me, everything has to start with the story. Right?
Absolutely.
It has to be that concrete story there, at least that root, and you can branch out and do weird things from it, but. That's and I love that we're seeing. We were talking with another guest earlier about. I don't like the terminology elevated horror, but I understand where it comes from. There were a lot of people who had the opinion for the longest time that horror was really just all like exploitation type films, right? Just splatter and that sort of thing. And I love that we're starting to be able to approach those styles. And those, I think these films have always been, but we're more open now to a more intelligent story and a more deep narrative within that horror world. And I love that women and people of color and LGBTQ people and just all these diverse voices that have just been waiting. Please just let us tell our story.
Let us in.
And it's like I was telling you, probably my favorite film, a horror film of the last 5 years, is a film called Saint Maud, written and directed, first-time writer-director Rose Glass. She just had her second movie, Love Lies Bleeding, come out. And it's like, I think it's every bit as good as like Ari Aster's Hereditary or Robert Eggers' The Witch, and I don't hear people talking about it nearly as much, and it's frustrating. So I want to take the opportunity I can to talk to as many people from those other perspectives. What's next for you?
Yeah, what's next? Well, I have a bunch of things. Actually, I'm kind of getting into more of a constellation mode because I have so many projects on my plate. I don't want to prioritize them. I want to keep them all going. So a couple are documentaries. I taught in Cabrini Green.
Okay.
And I'm leaving teaching after 20 years.
Side note, if anybody doesn't know what Cabrini Green is listening to a horror podcast, I can't help you. Sorry. I can't help you.
Exactly. So that's one of my projects that I'm talking with the producer on. Another one is I'm working on a feature film as a producer called Evil Usher. And that is going to be a black and white slasher film.
Black and white silent slasher film. She described it to me a moment ago, and she said black and white silent slasher, and I said, you just said three of my favorite things all in a row. Yeah. I'm sold on concept alone.
Yeah, and if anybody hasn't seen Ripley, that's kind of what we're going for, that type of mode, that type of feel. So I'm really excited about that. Also with Senyah, I have a bunch of projects going. We did, our prior short film was called White Female, where we really kind of took on white fragility. And a white and black, two friends that have been friends since childhood, and the black character finally had the ability to be able to speak her truth to the white childhood friend who was not into listening to it. And I think Senyah and I have a lot of ideas how we can continue to talk at film festivals about that, and also sequels, and how we can continue to cause discussion, because it's been very widely received. The people that have heard it have been very interested to see more and hear more and talk more. So awesome. Us together kind of.
So you intend to work together a lot more in the future.
Without we play very well in the sandbox.
And you're seeing a lot of that more and more now, is like people, crediting as directors together. Co-writing has been a thing, but just that level of creative partnership where nobody's needing to say like, this is my movie, right? And this is our movie, and we're bringing those things together. I'd love to see that. Evil Usher. Silent black and white slasher film. I don't even know what to say about that. I'm very excited. If people want to keep up with you and the projects you all have going on, where can they do that?
No, thank you. So evilusherthemovie.com is our website right now, and our pitch deck's on there, so you can see more about the direction of the film. And if you're interested in things I'm doing, Chi-Town Sugar Films. I'm on Instagram, but it's SHY, Chi-Town, because I teach literacy. At least I do for the next month and a half before I leave my teaching career behind. But I'm I'm not about CHI, SHY. So SHY, Chi-Town Sugar Films is who I am.
Awesome. Well, guys, I very much look forward to being able to see the film when our streaming opportunity rolls around. And thank you for taking a moment to stop and chat with us, and we'll stay in touch and keep an eye on how things go for it.
Awesome. Thank you, JD.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
All right, so we're back with another filmmaker guest here for We Watch Shudder at the Chicago Horror Film Festival. Introduce yourself, sir.
Hi, I am Dylan A. Young, and I'm here with my film Sorry for the Mess.
Sorry for the Mess, Dylan A. Young. I haven't seen it because it hasn't played yet. We're actually going to watch it here in this very screening room a little bit later this evening. But for people who are listening, tell them a little bit about what Sorry for the Mess is about.
Yeah, Sorry for the Mess is about a high school boy that is struggling with some things in both his home life and his school life. He doesn't really know where to turn to, and it's about him just trying to cope with some of those issues that he's going through.
Awesome. And is this your first major festival project, or?
Let's see. This might be maybe my 5th short that's gone to festivals.
Okay. Nice. And first festival appearance for it here in Chicago, or?
In Chicago, yes. It premiered last October in Knoxville at the Knoxville Horror Film Festival.
Okay. Awesome. So, having not seen the film yet, we got to talk about some other things a little bit. Tell me. For you, why horror? Where did that start? Is there a specific film or a specific moment that you can think of?
So it's if I can think back to the earliest influences of horror for me, it's the Ichabod Adventures of Ichabod Crane, Pinocchio, the donkey transformation scene. I mean, some of those really early memories of feeling scared.
Yeah.
And, I think for me, in film, emotion is so important. Whether it's making me mad, making me sad. I feel like
just make me feel something.
Make me feel something, and it's that's the note of a great director.
Yeah.
You know.
Excellent. And then when you started filmmaking, was it specifically to do horror, or have you worked on other things?
So I actually just made over the last 2 months and released a micro short that's just a drama for the first time.
Awesome.
Everything else I've done has been more horror leaning, but yeah, this was just something that I felt really compelled to make. And there was a thing in Nashville that is a showcase for filmmakers called Dare to Fail that they do almost once a month, and they just pick a new theme and you get 1 minute to make your film, and that's all you get, and it was fun. The theme was The Fool, so I made a film that was inspired by foolishness, but also the representation of the fool in tarot.
Okay, awesome. And then, so I can't. It's distracting me to a certain extent. You're wearing an Iron Claw T-shirt, Triumph and Tragedy. I'm a pro wrestling nerd before I'm a horror nerd.
Okay,
I gotta ask you. Who all-time favorite wrestler?
All-time favorite wrestler. Okay,
Put this horror stuff aside for a minute.
I grew up with the WrestleMania VHS tapes.
Okay.
And these days, I love the psychology behind wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
I love watching wrestling docs. Dark Side of the Ring is a favorite of mine.
Awesome.
I've got to say, growing up, it was always the Ultimate Warrior, and I've got to stick to that.
Also, it was one of the wildest finishes for a guy. They finally got him back, and he came in and did his Hall of Fame appearance, and then he made an appearance on Monday Night Raw, and then he died.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It was wild, and obviously sad, but also just what a story, pardon me.
Oh, absolutely.
But the podcast, actually, there's an independent wrestling promotion back home called Time Bomb Pro Wrestling, and we sponsor every one of their events as well.
Nice.
So anytime I see somebody with a wrestling reference, I gotta draw attention to it.
Don't blame you one bit.
How has the response been to the film so far?
People have seemed to be okay with it. It is a very heavy film, so I wasn't sure how people would feel about the film. A lot of people feel like it has an important message. I've definitely seen some people shedding tears as they watched the film, which was something that felt really important to me. But yeah, so far, response seems to be really good.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's another thing we've been talking with a lot of people about is just horror very much was sort of pushed down into, at least in most people's minds, just mostly an exploitation genre.
Right.
Never mind that The Exorcist exists, never mind that Texas Chainsaw Massacre exists, these. But we're seeing just more of a trend of more story and more seriousness, more depth of character being brought in, and I love every bit of it. If you were going to say in the last 5 years, what have you seen that, and I'm not even asking for just one title, what have you seen that's really, you feel just opened your eyes about something in horror that you had never seen before?
I just kind of like this new, art house renaissance within indie horror.
Yeah.
And like these companies like Neon and A24 really like
That's
giving
my stuff, yeah.
Giving people the low but good budgets that
Right.
they need to make genuinely great horror films.
Mhm.
And, you know, it's like, I love going to the theater and seeing the new Cronenberg or new Eggers or, you know, Ari Aster film. So I think that, like, that to me is what's, like, really exciting me
Yeah.
about horror films in the last
Right.
5 years.
One of the biggest things for me is I think through that, you're also, even just in the last year, there are so many small horror films that have gotten theatrical drops.
Absolutely.
That they never would have gotten 5 years ago.
It's very exciting.
And I think predominantly we owe that to Terrifier.
Yeah.
Right? Because Terrifier 2 was kind of the one that it hit, and it was just this word of mouth thing that grew and grew and did enough business for the theaters to keep it around. And they all said, okay, let's maybe... And I'm not even a big Terrifier fan, right? That's a flavor that doesn't always work for me. But I respect what... And then, of course, you hit with Skinamarink and The Outwaters, and then we just had Late Night with the Devil.
Right.
Have you seen Late Night with the Devil?
I did catch Late Night in the theater before it released on Shudder.
I'm going to try really hard to not turn this into a full rating of that film, frankly. But the first time I saw it, I didn't get it. Because a lot of things went by very quickly, and then I got to watch it again on streaming.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit, I missed everything about this movie. This is genius. But, so what's next for the film? Where are you headed with this next?
Next weekend, I will be in Knoxville for FrankenCon. I'll be screening in the Franken Film Contest, and if anybody is around, I'll have a booth there promoting some of my merch with Video Nasty's horror apparel, and also just promoting some of my films with Stolen Thunder Pictures.
Tell us a little bit about that Video Nasty horror apparel.
Yeah, Video Nasty's is a horror apparel website that's been up for maybe 4 years. We've got some officially licensed horror films, products from Lucio Fulci's The Beyond. We've got Pieces. We've got 420 Massacre. We've got Street Trash, etc.
We just did an episode about Pieces a couple of months ago. Michelle had never seen it before. That's my co-host.
It's a good time.
I love it. It's wild. Like it's I don't know. I don't want to say too much about it for anybody who hasn't seen it because it'd give everything away, but goddamn, what a movie.
It's a fun one.
Anyway, Dylan, thank you so much for joining us here. I look forward to seeing the film in just a little while, and I wish you all the best of luck with it and everything going forward.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on.
You're very welcome. Have a good day. All right, so continuing right along, still live from the Chicago Horror Film Festival. We watch Shudder. This is JD. I've got another filmmaker guest with me. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, so my name is Mahée Merica. I'm a French filmmaker based in London, and my film ARIANE'S BABY was showing here on Friday. It won the Best Cinematography Award yesterday as well.
Awesome! Congratulations.
Thank you.
So you came all the way from London for the
Yes,
festival.
yes.
And you've been here all weekend?
Yeah.
Awesome. So, I'm sorry, the award again was? The award you won, Best Cinematography.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'll definitely be looking forward. I didn't get to come in until Saturday because this was a 2-day festival when I booked all my travel, so I missed everything on Friday, and it's a real bummer, but thankfully we'll get a chance to check it out. But for our listeners, tell them a little bit about the film. What is Ariana's Baby?
So it's a drama mixed with a horror film exploring the fears associated with motherhood, more specifically the expectations of being a mother. It follows Ariane, who is pregnant and quite excited to have a baby. She's a single mother. But as the birth is drawing near, she starts to have visions of monsters trying to steal her baby away from her stomach. And that makes her question whether she's ready or not to be a good mom.
Okay, awesome. There's a wealth of and I keep coming. I started to feel like a broken record, but we've done a lot of talking already this weekend about new angles and new voices. You know, from women, people of color, LGBTQ voices, all of that stuff. And there's specifically like this whole subgenre of motherhood horror that I myself have become fascinated with because it's just an experience and a perspective that I not only don't have but can never have.
Yeah.
Right? And that makes it so curious and interesting to me. What brought you to that sort of story? Is there any kind of personal experience involved, or just a creative idea you came up with? Or?
So I had the sister of a friend who got a baby, and from what I understood, after, like, in appearance she looked very happy, but when I heard a bit more about the behind the scenes, I realized that it came with a lot of emotional baggage. She was, of course, feeling exhausted, but also she was really scared to be up to the task. She was feeling like she lost a part of her own identity as a person because she became just a mom. She felt less attractive than she used to be, and I feel like we don't really realize that because so many people have children, so many women are pregnant and get children, and we don't really get a sense of how life-changing, not only in the good side it can be, like it really changes your whole definition of yourself. When you think about it, like technically a baby growing up in your stomach, it's like an alien thing. You don't know the baby while it's there. And yeah, just thinking about it, I thought it's a really scary experience. And because we're so focused on congratulating mothers when the baby is born and wondering how the baby is doing, we never really wonder about how they are doing after the birth. And I learned, I've done some research after hearing my friend's story, and I learned that an overwhelming majority of women have baby blues after giving birth. And I think because we expect mother to have like unconditional love and to be caring, it feels a bit paradoxical, the idea that they might not feel this way, and it might be really alienating for them. So I thought it was interesting to explore that, and also to use the film as a dialogue exploring the fears of being an overwhelming mother when you care too much, and losing your freedom as a woman once you become a mother.
Sure.
So yeah, what?
Excellent. Yeah, and you mentioned, so you've been making films for a while. What got you into horror specifically? Why is that the place for you?
So I love horror because I think, so to me, a really compelling film is a film that not only makes you think, it also has to move you. And I think it also has to create like some physical sensations. Okay. I think it really helps you to be drawn in a film to be able to identify with the sensation of your characters. And I think horror film are one of the only genre that is really providing this additional sense. And I think over the past few years, like actually even since the 60s, when you look at horror films, they've always been quite revolutionary. They've always been the one approaching very important subject matters before everyone else.
Yeah, it's the place that everybody looks down on it, so that you can get away with things there in a way that you couldn't anywhere else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it's mostly low budget most of the time. Like big companies, studio don't really have their word to say as much.
Yeah, the irony is there's a lot of freedom when you're not working with anybody's money, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Being broke is I mean, nobody can tell you no. So,
exactly.
But so, how has the film been? I'm assuming this is not the first festival appearance for it.
No.
And how has it been received so far?
I'm pretty glad because it's been received pretty well. Like it's been on the festival circuit for almost a year now.
Okay.
It's been going to around like 20 film festivals. I won multiple awards.
Awesome.
But I'm really glad to see the reaction of the audience, and especially, so of course I'm delighted when women identify with it, but I would say not that surprised because I've been talking to women, I know that they feel this way. I think it's really nice hearing men, and especially like older men, but also younger men, like coming to me and being like, this made me reflect about what it is like to be a woman and what it is like to go through this experience. I've been to a film festival in Ireland when they showed the film to a young, like teenager class. It was mostly boys. And one of the boys came to me at the end and was like, it made me reflect about how good of a partner I want to be for my girlfriend when she's going to be pregnant. And I think that's pretty cool to be able to do that.
There's actually a movie I talk about frequently where that was weirdly sort of the experience that Michelle and I had. It's a movie called Lucky. It was directed by Natasha Kermani. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't.
Well, it was that sort of experience where it's a movie, female perspective on domestic violence and people just not believing women and that sort of thing. But we watched it and we reviewed it for the show because I saw it and it was just an eye-opener for me, right? And then Michelle saw it, and she's like, yeah, it's well made, but this is nothing new to me. Like, there's nothing here that I haven't just already experienced in my daily life. And that, I agree with you, that's almost the more important element of what you're doing, right? Like, giving that voice to the people who haven't had it, but can you also make people listen who need to?
Yeah, because I think I think it was with Dylan, we just heard before, we talked about Promising Young Woman the other day, and I really love this film, but to me it's a film that is kind of talking to people who are already convinced by its message, and I think it's nice to be able to use an entertaining film and like hijack it a bit to be able to get people who normally not listen to this type of message get more like open to it.
And so again, because I haven't had a chance to see it yet, just out of is it more psychological, or I like a little bit of splatter myself, especially when it's limited and used in. But what am I gonna see here? What are we?
So I'd say it's mostly psychological, but there are monsters in it that are designed by Sophie Baverstock, my makeup artist, and myself. And the monsters are a bit gory. It's not like proper body horror, it's not proper gory, but it's still like visual.
Because like I said, in this whole motherhood horror thing, I've seen both, and man, there's a movie called Good Madam that's I believe a South African film or somewhere from but it has one of the most just savage birth sequences that I've ever seen. It's really aggressive and intense, but again, there's so many new things that can be explored there just from that perspective, and I'm really glad to be able to get a chance to talk with as many diverse voices as we can here on the show. Where is the film going next?
So next weekend it's going to be shown at another festival in LA. It's been selected for the annual showcase of the Indie X Film Festival. And then in June I have a festival in Belgrade, which is a really cool festival. It's centered around female characters, and in the Balkans. So in the Balkans, I feel like female characters are not as explored as they are in more Western countries. So I think it's really cool that this festival is taking the opportunity to like having talks and showing films displaying female characters. And then it's also going to be shown at BIFA, so it's the British Independent Film Awards, like the equivalent of the BAFTA, but for more independent film, at the BIFA Qualifying Film Festival in England in June as well.
Awesome.
So
and I assume will be available for people to see at some point. When are you hoping to have it publicly available?
So the film will be picked up by a distribution company. It's a French distribution company. I'm French. It's called Sisteria Film.
Okay.
So I'm not really sure where they're gonna distribute it, but I'm planning on making it like available when the film festival run is over.
And for people who want to keep an eye out and keep updated on that and what else you're working on, where can they find you?
So right now on Instagram, my Instagram is Mahée M7, so it's spelled Mahee M7. There's also an Instagram for the film called ARIANE'S Baby Film. And yeah, that's pretty much where you can find me.
Awesome. Well, Mahée, thank you for stopping and chatting with us for a while. I look forward to checking out your film when it becomes available on the streaming arm of the festival. And good luck to you with it going forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. All right, can't stop, won't stop. More filmmaker guests for We Watch Shudder at the Chicago Horror Film Festival. Gentlemen, introduce yourselves.
I am Chase Todd.
Shep.
We messed it up. We're rusty. We usually do a podcast.
Oh, right on.
We're on hiatus, so we're a little rusty on our Chase and Shep.
On hiatus because of the film?
Just because we've been going at it for 3 years now. So
the film, by the way, is called The Exorcism of Chase Shep. I have not had a chance to see it myself. It just screened earlier today.
It's getting ready to screen.
It's gonna screen. Awesome. I still have a chance to check it out. So what should I be expecting?
It is a horror comedy.
Okay.
It was one of the last projects we did in a string of just kind of going for it and just kind of doing our thing. And we've been playing this fictitious versions of multiple fictitious versions of ourselves over the last few years, and kind of established this sort of multiverse of sorts where we can just kind of keep telling stories with ourselves.
Yeah, and I think this one came about because the horror, all the weird demonic stuff happens around us, and then it's posed the question of why doesn't it happen to you two? And it's like, well, that's because we've already been possessed. Okay. That's the first thing.
And so the vibe I'm getting just from that little bit, horror comedy.
Oh, yes.
I think with a title like The Exorcism of Chase Shep, we kind of have an idea already where we're going. With that in mind, what are some of your personal favorite horror comedies, your inspirations for horror comedy?
Evil Dead, I think, was
Evil Dead's the biggest one.
Now, you see, this is, I've had this argument. First, Evil Dead is not a comedy film.
No, it is not.
But no, Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, it's so great. It's fabulous stuff. How you feel about Reanimator? If you're about to say anything negative about Reanimator, get off my podcast.
I saw it one time a long time ago. I don't think I could give an opinion. I need you to sell me on Saint Maud.
Dude, okay, so this movie is so...
I watched it recently. Yeah.
Oh, did you not like it?
We'll have to talk about this.
We'll talk about it, yeah. Yes. Oh, man, I went crazy over that film. I love it.
Yeah, a lot to say there.
For sure. So, horror comedy, going to be playing here in a little while. Is this your first festival appearance?
It is, yeah.
And do you have anything more lined up?
I do.
Okay.
The Chase Shep stuff's on hold at the moment. My other producing partner that's here with me, he's been my best friend for over 15 years. I've wanted to be a filmmaker since I was like 4 years old.
Okay.
And he was more of a musician, so when we came together, I was the one pushing the film stuff, and my other partner and I, we write a lot more serious stuff. So it was funny, we were talking to somebody earlier who's been doing a lot of serious stuff, who's ready to do comedy, and I'm in the other boat.
Sure.
I've been doing a lot of comedy, I'm ready to do something serious. So we're actually starting our next short next week.
And what's that called?
It's called Flippin' Susie.
Okay.
And it's a romantic thriller.
Right on. So, why horror? Like, where does that start for you? Is there like a flashpoint that you can think of that you said, like, no matter what, it's gotta be horror?
Absolutely. And I will say something that's kind of interested me about talking to people here this weekend is just how many people don't just do horror.
Right,
because that used to be the case.
Right.
But horror feels like an inescapable genre. Everybody I've ever known that's worked at it is like, man, this next thing I don't really want to do horror, and then they start writing, and the next they wrote a horror movie. They're like, shit, here we go again.
Well, and there's also, I think, very much been for a long time, just like once you've done it, you tend to get pigeonholed, right? And there is a lot more room for people to expand, and I think it just comes from horror right now is experiencing as a genre probably the most mainstream respect it's had in a long time. I hate elevated horror as terminology because I think it's insulting to everything else. And my big line always is nobody calls The Exorcist elevated horror. Shut up. But it's I do appreciate that you're seeing at least. I think for a long time the bulk of horror fans didn't want that. Right? They got what they wanted, which was the more exploitation style sort of thing. But I'm very happy that we're getting more of that coming in. That being said, I have seen multiple horror comedies here this weekend that I have rolled at. Did you guys get to see Werewolf Margarita?
Not yet. We met the guy last night.
Oh my
we missed
God,
out.
I rolled. It's so funny.
Well, I was sold off the name a lot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's also one that I just saw today called Slaughter Creek Slasher of the Dead.
Yeah, we watched that one.
It was awesome. It's so good. But so people making the festival run. When do you think the film might be available for people to see?
Oh, it's been available.
Oh, it's available. Awesome. Yeah.
We released it back in October of last year on Friday the 13th. There's the original version and a black and white cut on there, along with all of our little other Chase Shep adventures.
And how has reception been?
It was pretty good.
Yeah, it was really good. We were on a small streaming service at first.
What was that?
Scareplex.
Okay. They've since closed their doors.
That's a bummer.
But it was nice, when that was the first service off of YouTube or anything. We got to put something on, and because we went with music that either we made or people we knew put in it, so we could put it up there. So to get to see us in like the top 10 or the top 20 viewed in a week and stuff, that was pretty cool.
Awesome. And then, do you have any more festival appearances for this film scheduled up?
No, this was a kind of a chance thing. Somebody we've been working with recently, who actually does have a film here as well, F, that's playing.
Okay.
We are in that movie as our characters of Chase and Shep. I think it's playing
now.
right now.
Yeah.
But we play our characters of Chase and Shep.
Well, I'll have you know, I decided to not go see that film so I could be here and chat with you guys.
Hey,
so I get a chance to see everything in a week. That's all right.
You know.
I about a week I get to go. I'm going to spend probably 3 straight days just watching. Now, there's so many films here. Did you guys just get here today?
Yesterday.
Yesterday.
So obviously we like to talk about your films. What have you seen so far that you've really enjoyed at the festival?
Honestly, I think anxiety's gotten the best of us, and we haven't really sat in a lot of these things. So we've only seen a handful of things.
I like what was the vampire one we caught in there? Something blue, red, something blue.
Red Blood Blues, I think that's what it's called.
Yes, there you go.
Red Blood Blues.
That was really cool. I enjoyed that, and the Friday the 13th.
The one we just saw earlier.
Skin. You mean, Skin. Dude,
Yeah,
I told those fellas,
Skin was really good.
of the things that I've seen here this weekend, and I've seen a lot of stuff I've really liked, that might be my favorite thing.
For sure.
That was so good. And so obviously we'll check everything out when we have the opportunity. People who are listening who might want to check your stuff out, keep an eye on what projects you're working on, where can they find you?
Right now, everything is at the Chase and Shep YouTube page.
Okay.
Everything's there. Eventually, we are going to switch over our branding to our studio name, which is Earth 217. But right now, everything's Chase and Shep on YouTube.
Awesome. Well, fellas, thanks for stopping to chat with us for a little while. I think I'm going to get this edited and drop it right away tonight. But yeah, we'll get the word out for you, and thanks for chatting with us.
Thank you, man.
Very welcome. All right, so we're not done yet. More filmmaker guests on We Watch Shudder live from the Chicago Horror Film Festival. Please introduce yourselves.
I'm Tim Martin, the director, writer, and producer of The Ones Across the Pond.
And who are you?
I'm Alexx Diaz, and I'm also like a co-writer and producer of Ones Across the Pond.
Okay, and so your film is going to be screening yet tonight in the Sunday night block. So obviously I haven't had a chance to see it. Tell people, what can we expect from The Ones Across the Pond? I'll be going in to see it.
The film is about a girl who's recently moved to a new city, like only been there about a month. A mysterious package shows up on her doorstep, no writing of any kind on it. She returns it. Package keeps showing up throughout the night, and it kind of unravels this cult-like conspiracy that's going on.
Okay, you said cult-like conspiracy. I'm sold immediately. So is this your first festival appearance with the film?
For this one, yeah.
Okay, and so you've made more films before, clearly.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get started, and like how long have you been working?
We knew each other from film school.
Okay.
And we actually met in our last semester.
Where'd you go to school?
Columbia College, actually,
Nice.
right down the street.
Nice.
Yeah, and it was like in the middle of COVID, I was getting really antsy, and I had like a really simple project that I've been going back and forth on, like if I want to make it or not. And I reached out to him, and I was like, "Do you just want to see where this can go?" And that was 4 years ago, and we've been on a fair few projects together, and we just kind of try to keep escalating and getting better.
Awesome. And so, why horror is the thing that I've been asking a lot of folks here. Like, what was it about horror? Is there a specific moment you can remember, like a movie or something, where you just said, "Yeah, this is for me"?
I think for me it was like, John Carpenter Halloween, or even like
My man.
Kubrick Shining, like growing up watching that.
John Carpenter's Halloween is not just his best film, it's the greatest film ever made. I will fist fight you to the death.
I will debate on Carpenter films, but...
it's the thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah, of course. I have that argument with so many
Easily
people.
top 3, though, Halloween.
Yeah, for sure. I love that film. But, and for you?
I mostly watch thrillers, but like
Okay.
Ready or Not was like a
I
really
love
good-
Ready or Not.
That was like the one I was like, I can really get into this,
Mhm.
and just like female driven, final girl kind of
Samara Weaving is fantastic in that film.
Oh, yeah.
And what I loved about that is I knew the title. I had no idea what to expect going in. It's a fantastic piece of work. But okay, so we're playing here later. Do you have more festival appearances coming up for the film?
So we did recently just get announced that we'll be at Gen Con in Indianapolis.
Oh, nice!
So
nice.
That's the most recent festival we heard back from. We have a lot more that we're waiting to hear back from currently.
I didn't even know they did film stuff at Gen Con.
I didn't either until
That's fantastic. I'm sorry, I just had a complete blank. So, what do you have coming up next?
We have a few things in the pipeline right now. So after our first film we did a few years ago, which wasn't a horror, it was more of a dramedy, but we sat down and kind of wrote this feature-length psychological period piece horror, and that's kind of been on the back burner. And that's actually how this film came to be, was kind of out of my frustration and impatience of budgeting that feature length.
Sure.
I was like, I want to make something.
Yeah.
So we kind of came together with this idea for a couple $100 and put it together.
Yeah, and I mean, that's, frankly, I think that's the story for a lot of people, because that's a crucial part, right, is you can sit around and talk all day about doing stuff, but eventually you have to get out there, and that's how our podcast started.
Yeah.
Michelle and I had been talking about doing something for a long time, and I was just like, look, we need to do this, or we need to just stop.
Yeah.
Because the motivation can go away very
Exactly.
quickly. And you're seeing a lot of that here. There's so much micro budget stuff, but it's made with so much clear passion.
Yeah.
There are some, I've seen $500 movies that I would rather watch again over $1 million features.
Totally, yeah.
You know,
I'm the same way.
Have you been here the whole weekend?
We came for Friday night for a little bit, but
Okay.
I came in because you live here, but I came in from out of town, so we kind of just been
Where'd you come in from?
Indianapolis.
Nice.
So.
I rode a bus from Fargo for 14 hours to be here.
That does not sound fun.
It was a nightmare.
Yeah.
I was on the bus 45 minutes, and a couple of people were threatening to beat each other to death. You know, it was a real good
bus
time.
ride, yeah.
But absolutely worth it, because we get to do this, right?
Yeah.
Even frankly, a lot of the movies that are playing here, and they're great movies, but they're movies that are going to get publicity, right? Once you get to a certain level and there's a certain thing going on, the publicity machine kind of feeds itself.
Yeah.
And everybody we've gotten to talk to today is just a small new voice coming into things, and I love that we get to, because, I mean, if we can get your name out to anybody, we're happy about that. So the movie again is I've done 10 of these now, and I'm running things on top of each other. I can't remember which questions I've asked which people. Tell us the name of the film again.
You're good. It's The Ones Across the Pond.
The Ones Across the Pond.
It's a long time. It was longer, but...
it's not Slaughter Creek Slasher of the Dead, but
No.
I think that it's the award for longest title for sure.
We almost had it with the second draft
I made him
title.
shorten it.
Well, what was it going to be?
It was The Night Nora Met the Ones Across the Pond.
And I was
you know-
Let's just cut out that first half.
I don't know. We'll check it out. I'm starting to think that might, the thing about a title like that is it does immediately catch your eye, right? But anyway, Tim, Alex, thank you for sitting down to chat with us for a while. I guess I almost forgot, where can people keep track of you and what you're working on?
You can keep track of us at our Instagram, Coldwind Productions LLC, or we also have an Instagram page for the film called The Ones Across the Pond on Instagram.
Perfect. And so that'll be playing tonight. I'm going to go check it out, and I'll tell everybody what we thought of it.
Perfect.
Thanks a lot for stopping by, guys.
Thank you.
All right, so we're not done yet. More filmmaker guests on We Watch Shudder, live from the Chicago Horror Film Festival. Please introduce yourselves.
I'm Tim Martin, the director, writer, and producer of The Ones Across the Pond.
And who are you?
I'm Alexx Diaz, and I'm also a co-writer and producer of Ones Across the Pond.
Okay, and so your film is going to be screening yet tonight in the Sunday night block. So obviously I haven't had a chance to see it. Tell people, what can we expect from The Ones Across the Pond? I'll be going in to see it.
The film is about a girl who's recently moved to a new city, only been there about a month. A mysterious package shows up on her doorstep, no writing of any kind on it. She returns it, package keeps showing up throughout the night, and it kind of unravels this cult-like conspiracy that's going on.
Okay, you said cult-like conspiracy. I'm sold immediately. So is this your first festival appearance with the film?
For this one, yeah.
Okay, and so you've made more films before, clearly.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get started, and like how long have you been working?
We knew each other from film school.
Okay.
And we actually met in our last semester.
Where'd you go to school?
Columbia College, actually,
Nice.
right down the street.
Nice.
Yeah, and it was like in the middle of COVID, I was getting really antsy, and I had like a really simple project that I've been going back and forth on, like if I want to make it or not. And I reached out to him, and I was like, "Do you just want to see where this can go?" And that was 4 years ago, and we've been on a fair few projects together, and we just kind of try to keep escalating and getting better.
Awesome. And so, why horror is the thing that I've been asking a lot of folks here. Like, what was it about horror? Is there a specific moment you can remember, like a movie or something, where you just said, "Yeah, this is for me"?
I think for me it was like, John Carpenter Halloween, or even like
My man.
Kubrick Shining, like growing up watching that.
John Carpenter's Halloween is not just his best film, it's the greatest film ever made. I will fist fight you to the death.
I will debate on Carpenter films, but...
it's the thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah, of course. I have that argument with so many
Easily
people.
top 3, though, Halloween.
Yeah, for sure. I love that film. But, and for you?
I mostly watch thrillers, but like
Okay.
Ready or Not was like a
I
really
love
good-
Ready or Not.
That was like the one I was like, I can really get into this,
Mhm.
and just like female-driven, final girl kind of.
Samara Weaving is fantastic in that film.
Oh, yeah.
And what I loved about that is I knew the title. I had no idea what to expect going in.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic piece of work. But okay, so we're playing here later. Do you have more festival appearances coming up for the film?
So we did recently just get announced that we'll be at Gen Con in
Oh,
Indianapolis.
nice,
So
nice.
that's the most recent festival we heard back from. We have a lot more that we're waiting to hear back from currently.
I didn't even know they did film stuff at Gen Con.
I didn't either until I was
That's fantastic. I'm sorry, I just had a complete blank. So what do you have coming up next?
We have a few things in the
Yeah.
pipeline right now.
Yeah.
So after our first film we did a few years ago, which wasn't a horror, it was more of a dramedy, but we sat down and kind of wrote this feature-length psychological period piece horror, and that's kind of been on the back burner. And that's actually how this film came to be, was kind of out of my frustration and impatience of budgeting that feature length.
Sure.
I was like, I want to make something.
Yeah.
So we kind of came together with this idea for a couple $100 and put it together.
Yeah, and I mean, that's, frankly, I think that's the story for a lot of people, because that's a crucial part, right, is you can sit around and talk all day about doing stuff, but eventually you have to get out there, and that's how our podcast started.
Yeah.
Michelle and I had been talking about doing something for a long time, and I was just like, look, we need to do this, or we need to just stop.
Yeah.
Because the motivation can go away very
Exactly.
quickly. And you're seeing a lot of that here. There's so much micro budget stuff, but it's made with so much clear passion.
Yeah.
There are some, I've seen $500 movies that I would rather watch again over $1 million features.
Totally, yeah. I'm the same way.
Have you been here the whole weekend?
We came for Friday night for a little bit, but
Okay.
we kind of... I came in because you live here, but I came in from out of town, so we kind of just been kind of...
Where'd you come in from?
Indianapolis.
Nice. I rode a bus from Fargo for 14 hours to be here.
That does not sound fun.
Oh, it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
I was on the bus 45 minutes, and a couple of people were threatening to beat each other to death. It was a
Typical
real good
bus
time.
ride, yeah.
But absolutely worth it, because we get to do this, right?
Yeah.
Even frankly, a lot of the movies that are playing here, and they're great movies, but they're movies that are going to get publicity, right? Once you get to a certain level and there's a certain thing going on, the publicity machine kind of feeds itself.
Yeah.
And everybody we've gotten to talk to today is just a small new voice coming into things, and I love that we get to. I mean, if we can get your name out to anybody, we're happy about that. So the movie again is I've done 10 of these now, and I'm running things on top of each other. I can't remember which questions I've asked which people. Tell us the name of the film again.
You're good. It's The Ones Across the Pond.
The Ones Across
It's
the
a long
Pond.
time. It was longer, but...
It's not Slaughter Creek Slasher of the Dead, but
No.
I think that it's the award for longest title for sure.
We almost had it with the second draft
I made him
title.
shorten it.
Well, what was it going to be?
It was The Night Nora Met the Ones Across the Pond.
And I was
you
like,
know-
Let's just cut out that first half.
I don't know. We'll check it out. I'm starting to think that might, the thing about a title like that is it does immediately catch your eye, right? But anyway, Tim, Alex, thank you for sitting down to chat with us for a while. I guess I almost forgot, where can people keep track of you and what you're working on?
You can keep track of us at our Instagram, Cold Wind Productions LLC, or we also have an Instagram page for the film called The Ones Across the Pond on Instagram.
Perfect. And so that'll be playing tonight. I'm going to go check it out, and I'll tell everybody what we thought of it.
Perfect.
Thanks a lot for stopping by, guys.
Thank you.
Oh, my Lord. I think I got one more of these left in me, and then I got to be done, and it's going to be you, sir. All right, so we're back with one more filmmaker guest here live from the Chicago Horror Film Festival on We Watch Shudder. Introduce yourself, sir.
I'm Alexander A. Stone, and I am the writer, director, producer, and actor of Vicious Comedy.
Vicious Comedy, another film that actually yet to screen here this evening. I'll be going in to check that out. What can we expect from Vicious Comedy? I'm hoping comedy from the title.
It's kind of an experimental psychological horror movie about... You follow two guys. The first is a killer who's basking in the afterglow of his work.
Okay.
And the second and main character you're following is a beloved but edgy stand-up comedian who's returning to the stage with a new show.
Okay.
So as you watch both men, you're led to a horrific reveal.
Well, that explains. What just an incredible coincidence. I happened to mention just before we start recording that I had done stand-up comedy for about 12 years, and I'm talking to a guy makes a horror. I had an idea at one point for a horror movie about a guy. He's a stand-up comedian, but that's his cover. And he's a traveling serial killer.
Okay.
Right? He shows up, but anything that involves stand-up, and just from my personal experience, I can get a little bit more attached to that. Where did that idea come from for you?
I love stand-up comedy. I love horror and I love stand-up comedy. Growing up in England, everything, I grew up with Hammer and all of that stuff.
Yes!
So, and coming here now, I lived in California for 26 years, and I just moved here with my wife from California to here.
Okay.
And it was just the concept of how could I take horror and comedy and mash them together, So, and I have friends who are also stand-up comedians, and so that was
Okay, so
the passions.
Jumping off from that, before we even say another word about horror movies, who are your favorite comedians?
Well, at the moment, the people that I were following in research for this project was people like Nikki Glazer and Big J. Okerson.
Okay.
I was looking at, sort of Anthony Jeselnik. I was looking at
Anthony Jeselnik is so funny.
Yeah.
I got a chance to meet him just briefly. He was opening for Brian Posehn on a tour.
Nice.
And got to meet him, and he's every bit the same person in person as he was on stage.
That you would expect, right?
What I love about him is everything is so quick, right? I did more of the sort of longer form storytelling kind of stuff. Sure. I don't think I could remember that many jokes. I sat down and watched his Comedy Central special when he released it, and in 22 minutes there are 55 punchlines.
Yeah.
He does one-liners it's so good. How do you feel about Jimmy Carr?
Love Jimmy Carr.
Jimmy Carr's great.
Yeah. I watched a lot of him as well. Yeah. I watched all the sort of the people that were bringing edgy stuff, because I'm not a comedian.
Sure.
But I had to play one convincingly. And I also had to be comfortable with the language.
Sure.
Because...
Oh, do you do an American accent in the film, or?
Yeah, the character's American.
Okay,
So yeah, that's something that I had to get used to.
And horror comedy is, I love all kinds of horror, but horror comedy is a personal favorite.
Right.
It's way up there. what are some of your horror comedy film inspirations, or even just some of your, like, what brought you into horror film specifically?
Well, I love the fact that I could enjoy watching things and experiencing stories that most people couldn't really handle. I was, incidentally, the first actor that I know of to ever play Patrick Bateman, the American Psycho. I made that film as a student movie about 4 years prior to the Christian Bale film.
That's hilarious you mentioned that. We just dropped an episode about American Psycho yesterday.
Really?
Yeah.
I will have to check that out.
This is insane. We got the comedy thing, we got the American Psycho. I'm definitely, if I'm on screen in your movie, I'm going to feel really weird.
Oh, yeah?
But no, that's awesome. That's... so that, how do you feel about American Psycho having? So you produced the entire story as a feature, or
it was a
short
student film. It was, well, I call it a short. It was 36 minutes long.
Is it still able to be seen anywhere?
I have it on old PAL VHS. So it was 1996.
Yeah.
It was the first film I'd ever really made.
Okay.
And so what I did, I took 9 sequences from the book, and I rearranged them and adapted a screenplay.
Was one of them the Huey Lewis sequence?
Yes.
I love that.
Yes, it was.
I love it.
And funnily enough, when I wrote, when the Christian Bale film came out, I had a whole bunch of people anyone who'd read my script or saw my version of the film, call me up and go, "Hey, did you sell your movie? Because you should get a lawyer." And I was like, "No." I'm just glad I was on the right track.
Right? Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. We're gonna have to talk when we're done here. I might have to twist your arm to get a chance to see that. I mean, I love what they did, what Mary Harron did with that film.
Yeah, so did I. They were great.
And coming back to watch it again, frankly, as a 20-year-old dude watching it the first time, there are so many levels of commentary and comedy going on there that I just didn't have the life experience to understand. That movie is so funny.
Yeah, you look back and go, "Oh, it's mainly a dark comedy than a horror film."
Well, yeah, and also, frankly, after the last couple of years and the perspective we've all gotten on wealthy, powerful white men in a way that we haven't seen before,
right.
it rings a whole lot differently in 2024 than it did in 2000.
Yeah, in the book they do this funny thing where they go past like transient bums on the street and they wave $5 bills in front of them and then put it back in the wallet and walk off laughing.
Yeah.
Things like that is where they...
One of the biggest things to me is there's, again, in the book that's not in the movie, is there's, like, Patrick Bateman, I think he goes through about 7 Sony Discman portable CD players, which in that era were several $100s a piece.
Yeah,
There's one moment where he's just having an anxiety attack and he just throws one in a public trash can and just keeps
because
walking.
most people had Walkmans which played audio cassettes, but the Discman was like a portable compact disc player, so that was different from the Walkman.
Well, we could talk about American Psycho all day.
All day
So your film, is this the first festival appearance for it?
Actually, no. It was recognized in Rome and in Paris, in St. Louis, Hollywood, California, and it's going to be recognized in London, I believe, in England.
Excellent. And when are you hoping to have it available for public viewing?
I am considering options. I'm figuring out where to, which platform I want to go with. Do I just do it on YouTube? Do I go with Tubi?
Sure.
Something like that, yeah.
Excellent. I tell you what, if you go with Tubi, maybe twist their arm to put a little bit more effort into where they put their commercial breaks. I love it. They got great content, but they will just drop a commercial right in the middle of a scene.
Right.
So frustrating. And where can people follow you if they want to keep track of your work and keep an eye on when they're available to see the film?
Both my Facebook, Instagram, and my personal website. So my website is alexanderastone.com, and you can find me on Facebook under Alexander A. Stone.
Awesome. Alexander, thanks for stopping and chatting with us for a while. I look forward to seeing the film here in just a little while.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, so we're getting up close to the final screening block here at the Chicago Horror Film Festival. A little bit of noise in the background. That's okay. We got a big microphone. We'll get it all caught up. One last filmmaker guest here for us this weekend. Please introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Jax Kinlaw, and I'm the writer, director, and producer of WEREWOLF MARGARITA, and this is my co-producer, Ellie Marcotte.
Hi, I was the co-producer on Werewolf Margarita.
Yeah. So we the film screened yesterday. A horror comedy film. If you can probably assume from a title like Werewolf Margarita. I laughed my ass off at this film. I have seen a lot of really good horror comedies this weekend. This is absolutely my favorite. I thought it was well written. It was there are jokes in here that are just snappy, and that's the thing to me is I think a lot of people who make horror comedy, they kind of rely on just like the goofiness and the absurdity of horror. There's not necessarily a lot of just like good jokes and comedy on its own. There's a line in this movie about tequila that might be the funniest damn thing I've heard in a horror movie in a long time. I don't want to spoil it for anybody. Why horror comedy? What brought you there?
So it's funny, I had a general idea of what I wanted to happen in the script, and originally I didn't plan it out to be a comedy, but as I was writing it, it was just funny. It just kind of came out that way in my head, and I just decided to roll with it and kind of capitalize on that and really dive in and accept that it was going to be a horror comedy.
And do you have any experience with any kind of comedy writing previously?
There's a little bit of comedy sprinkled into everything that I've done.
Okay. Yeah, because like I said, first and foremost, I thought it was very, very funny. And just from a writing perspective in general, it's hard to tell a good layered story in your film was 12 minutes?
10 minutes.
10 minutes, yeah. So you have options with that amount of time. You can do something very basic and very straightforward, or you can try to add as much nuance as you can. And I thought it was an excellently told story for 10 minutes. It was easy to follow. There's no nonsense. Lots of good tension built inside the comedy. I can't say enough good things about your film. I'm going to try not to turn this into a praise fest. The reaction here was great. Have you screened other places?
This is the first in-person screening that I've done for this, so I was really happy with the audience's reactions.
It was incredible, the response. Do you have any more screenings, any more festival appearances coming up?
So this weekend, I'm also screening my Canadian premiere at the Shock Stock Horror Film Festival, as well as our Portland premiere at the Crypticon Seattle Horror Film Festival.
And how about for you? What's your background with horror? Where do you come in? Are you a lifetime horror fan, or do you have any favorites?
Oh yeah, I'm a lifetime horror fan.
Okay.
I'm a huge fan of werewolves in general.
Nice.
Just, that's
what's
where I
favorite
go first.
Werewolf movie?
Oh, I'm gonna have to say American Werewolf in London or Ginger Snaps.
Nice.
I think those have the coolest practical effects and stuff.
Yeah.
It's this really cool blend of just.
Have you seen Werewolves Within?
No, I haven't.
It's relatively new, but it stars that lady from the she's in commercials for some cell phone company, Lily from whatever. She wears like a blue sweater.
I know who you're talking about.
Milana Vaintrub is the actress's name. She stars in the movie, but very recent werewolf comedy that just, again, well written, cracked me up. You should definitely check it out if you're a werewolf fan.
Absolutely.
What's next for you? I mean, obviously we're promoting this one hard, but I have to assume that there's more in the pipeline.
Absolutely, yeah. So we have a longer version of Werewolf Margarita planned out.
Nice.
And it plays out a lot in like Pulp Fiction in the sense that it's a bit of an anthology, but all of the stories mixed together, and it's just kind of imagine the sort of funny crime drama like Pulp Fiction, but in a world it's like in a world where vampires and werewolves exist. So there would be a lot of crime, like werewolf gangs and vampire mobsters and stuff like that.
Nice.
And so
and that is one of the things to me about short films is they exist for multiple purposes, right? Like sometimes we're just going to show you the first 3 minutes that we've made as a way to try and promote raising money for more, or sometimes it is just a story that only needs 10 minutes. My favorite shorts are the ones where I watch it and I say, there's way more story here. I want to see this as a feature, and I could definitely see your film as a feature. I thought I love the horror elements of it, but I keep coming back to just how funny it was, and that's I think horror comedy is almost harder to do than real intense, like suspenseful horror.
Absolutely.
And I think you did a fantastic job. Man, I have done about 12 of these, and I wish I had more thoughts in my head and questions to ask you. But guys, keep an eye out. Werewolf Margarita is the name of the film. When are you hoping people will be able to see it?
Are we talking on
publicly, after the festival run? Yeah.
Right now, end of the year, we're waiting on responses from a few other film festivals. So whether or not we will be playing at those will determine when we're going to release it publicly.
And for people who want to keep track and follow the updates so that they can know where things are, or just keep an eye on what you guys are working on, where can we follow you?
You can follow us on Instagram. It's just called Werewolf Margarita is our Instagram page.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Guys, keep your eyes out for not Werewolf Pina Colada.
Werewolf
Margarita. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
All right, so it turns out the recording doesn't stop. More folks that we want to talk to here, more filmmakers from the Chicago Horror Film Festival. This is JD. Got a couple of fellas whose film just screened. It's called Family for Christmas. Introduce yourselves.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nick Pospisil.
And I'm Tyler Lubinus.
Nick, we've been going back and forth this whole time, and you didn't tell me who you were.
Yeah.
I've talked to you on the Facebook and everything.
Yes, I have.
Awesome. I was like, I guess Nick didn't come out to talk with it. That's awesome. Okay, so again, I didn't get a chance to see the film. It's called Family for Christmas. For our listeners who may eventually get a chance to check it out, which I hope they will, tell us what this movie is about. What can we expect from it?
Expect a Hallmark parody with blood.
Okay, I can get down with that. Something me and my mom can watch together.
Exactly. It's essentially a retelling of. So Tyler over here is my husband.
Okay.
It's a retelling of when he met my family for the first time with a horror twist.
Okay, I was gonna say I hope the blood wasn't part of that. Real life adventure.
It was.
Oh, did it? Is this the first festival that you guys have played with this film?
With this film, yes. This is our first one.
Okay, and how did the screening go?
It went really well. So we're definitely a horror comedy, and people were cracking up.
That's all you can ask for, right?
Exactly.
No matter whether it's horror, any kind of comedy, if they laughed, you succeeded. Mm-hmm. That's good. That's awesome to hear. Do you have any other festival appearances coming up with it?
So we're applied to a couple, and we've also gotten into the Thing in the Basement.
Okay.
Yeah, and I believe that's an online festival out in Seattle, and that's going to happen in a couple of months, I believe.
Awesome. And so is this your first film working together? Have you done other projects?
We have done
Second.
Yes. So we have done one film before where I was just the producer and the editor, and Tyler was an actor. This is my directorial debut.
Awesome. And working as filmmakers independently before you started working together, or has it always been a family project, so to speak?
So Tyler is a high school teacher. He teaches theater.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, and I'm a professional editor in real life. I do reality TV.
Okay. Oh, excellent. Anything our listeners might have seen your work on?
No.
Probably not. No, we don't watch a lot of reality TV.
Really got post-production house.
Right on. And so, do you have anything else in the pipeline already, or are you really focused on promoting this?
So we have another script that we plan on doing this summer that Tyler also wrote. So he wrote our first film, I wrote this one, and then we're essentially bouncing back and forth on who writes it.
All right, thanks so much.
Bye, Stefan.
So
that's our friend.
That's all right.
Yeah, kind of bounce back.
Love it. Thank you.
Excellent. Oh, that's going to sound awesome. I love it when we get those candid moments. Clearly, people enjoyed your film.
Yeah.
Friends or not, they enjoyed your film.
Yes.
So one of the things we've been talking with a lot, and I really appreciate the diversity of filmmakers that I've gotten to talk to today. Because as I've said in a number of my interviews, I'm sure you've heard me say it a couple of times already, even aside from just, representation and diversity just as a concept being so important, there's so many more new stories to tell and new ways to look at old stories. And I love that we're seeing more look, I'm a straight white dude, right? But I there are still straight white dudes making great films, but there's so much more that can be done and seen here. Like we were talking to Mahée earlier, there are things that I just could never imagine as a story because I don't have the perspective to imagine it. And so that's something that we really appreciate here. Why horror, by the way? Like, have you been horror fans for a while? What is there like a flashpoint moment for you?
So personally, me getting into horror was through meeting Tyler. Tyler has been into horror for a long time, and I got into it through him.
Okay.
And queer people usually gravitate towards horrors, like when relating to the otherness of monsters and things.
There's so much queer coding in classic horror all the way back to the beginning. Absolutely.
Frankenstein, hello.
Oh, yeah. Have you seen, actually, on Shudder, they did a series about a year and a half ago called Queer for Fear?
Yes.
Yeah.
We love Shudder here, as you do.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's why we started the show. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's my co-host, Michelle. It's her favorite show in the world. She loves it. But no, it's awesome that more people are getting these opportunities. We're hearing more voices. For you, why horror?
I think you hit the nail on the head earlier, where it's like it's not necessarily about that we're done with the straight white dudes. It's more just like, isn't it fun to invite more people into the conversation?
Yeah.
And I think that that's really exciting, and especially with horror. I mean, horror's always been very queer, and I noticed like a lot of people of color have been drawn to horror as well, and I think it's because it's this idea of feeling like you're the other, that fear, and getting the time to process that fear, which the two shorts that we've made have both very much addressed that. Our first one, Vague Sentiments, had done that as well, and I think it's this idea of how could we process those emotions in a way that feels... It's kind of, I don't want to say relaxing, but it's cathartic.
Yes.
To put a monster face to it, or to put blood to it, or to put a ghost or whatever on top of it can feel kind of nice.
Yeah.
That it's something legitimate versus just various trauma that's built up over the years. That's not always really exciting to keep.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you. He directed it. I know. Sorry, everybody.
That's all right. We're out here working on the fly. These things come and go.
They see my face, and I was in it, so that I was like, but he's here. Yes, it was.
I made vicious comedy played afterwards.
There were the first 3 films playing in that theater were all ones that I wanted to go see, and then we made the terrible mistake of going and ordering a pizza, thinking an hour would be plenty of time. No such luck, and I missed all 3 of them, and I feel like a dick.
Catch it on streaming next week.
I'll absolutely be checking them out.
Yeah.
And so guys, I really appreciate you finding us, taking the time to come and chat with us. Where can people keep an eye on you and Family for Christmas in particular for updates if they want to know when that's available for them to see?
Right, Tyler, you go first.
Oh, okay. So, Nick's post-production house that he works with is Creative Dynamic, and so they're a great group to look at with the stuff that they're producing. And then, in addition, our production company is called Grizzly Gaze, Gaze.
Yes, Instagram coming soon.
Yeah, so we are, that's a good way to find us, and we, on Instagram or whatever, if you type in Grizzly Gaze, we are available via that, and we have more stuff coming around, so we're excited.
Is it Grizzly like Grisly, or is it the Z's? Because that's a whole nother level.
SLY.
Okay, good.
We've created such a spelling conundrum in order for the pun.
I love it.
Yeah, Grizzly as in like a grisly affair,
yes.
and gaze as in looking at something. But yes, the pun is there.
That's awesome. That's fabulous.
So if you'd like the exact handles, you can follow Tyler at Oddities of Tyler, me at Nick P. Edits Movies, Creative Dynamic at Creative_Dynamic. That is a post-production house where we specialize in short films. And then follow us on Grizzly Gaze soon. It's going to be at Grizzly Gaze. That's GrislyGaze.
Fantastic. Gentlemen, thank you for speaking with me for a while today. We'll be checking your film out as soon as we can.
Yes, awesome.
Awesome. Still going, can't stop, won't stop. It's JD at the Chicago Horror Film Festival. We got more filmmakers we're talking to. Please introduce yourself to the listeners.
Hi, my name's Nick Campbell.
And Nick, what's the film you've got playing here at the festival?
My film's title is Replaced.
And that's still playing later tonight, yeah?
Yep, so it should be playing a little after 8, so I'd say probably
Nice.
quarter after 8.
So, for obviously, since I haven't seen it yet, and for those listening at home, give us a little, just a quick, like a blurb. Sell us on your film, sir.
All right. So the log line is depressed college student Sam is so desperate to speak to her mother again that she tries to reach out to her in the afterlife, but reaches something else instead.
Okay.
So the film is about grief, and a lot of films in the past have touched on the topic of grief, but a lot of people like to focus on the 5 stages of grief. I'm a huge fan of Mike Flanagan, so
yes.
I love Haunting a Hill House. But one thing that nobody really talks about a lot is the fact that there's no timetable for going through the grieving process. A friend of mine had gone through roughly 2 years of struggling after her grandmother's death because, it was really hard for her. So I really wanted to make a film about grief taking over somebody's life, because when you really are just that deeply stricken by somebody passing, it really does feel like it just takes over your life, like it influences everything that you do. So I really wanted to see if I could portray that.
And that's something that we've actually been talking with a lot of our filmmaker guests about this weekend, is this new wave of horror that is centered around trauma and grief and that sort of thing, and how it's very much in that's the idea, right? Is it's as much a processing thing for the filmmakers as it is for the audience. But it's a way to work through a lot of those issues. Look, I'm going to tell you, we talked to a fella earlier named Dylan. I forget his last name, but he has a movie that just played in the first screening room called Sorry for the Mess. And I had to leave the room.
It's a tough one.
It's heavy, but what I love about it, and what I love about trauma and grief-oriented films, is that it's peeling disguises away. It's bringing things more out into the front. We've avoided those conversations for so long, and one of the things that has always been the case about horror films is it's a place where it's kind of overlooked. A lot of people just kind of look down on it as, those silly horror movies. And so you can get away with a lot. And there's a room, there's a place. You can do so many more new things in horror, and so many of the most creative things in cinema right now, I think, are coming from horror.
Yeah, and I would definitely agree with that. Yeah. I love that films nowadays, they're not just going to be like, as much as I love the traditional slashers like the Halloween, that's not all just about the, putting characters on screen to watch them get killed. There's a lot more character depth, and there's a lot more story to it. And that's definitely the type of stuff that really inspired me. So I'm actually just getting into filmmaking. I ended up going back to school in 2022 to study film. I've been working full-time as a paramedic, throughout COVID and stuff like that. And, I always dreamed as a kid of making movies. And I was like, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it.
For sure, yeah.
Just
move. Make something happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just getting to see, just in my career, just getting to see a bunch of different people, all walks of life, all the different struggles that people are going through, it really made me feel like I could have a voice where I could really talk about those types of subjects. So this film is actually, I've only been making film for about a year.
This is your first major production then?
Yep. So this is actually the first film festival I've ever been able to attend with it that wasn't on a college campus.
Sure.
So it did get into one other festival before this one, but I wasn't able to make it out to LA for that one, which, I'm from Syracuse, New York. So it's a little bit of a
hike, yeah.
But I ended up making the drive out here because I was just like, Chicago, it's definitely something I can afford to go out and do at this time. It looked like such an incredible festival. I was really excited to be able to, just spend the weekend watching horror movies and seeing what other filmmakers are doing right now.
It's my first time being here for the Chicago thing, and this is, I guess, the first year they're doing 2. Normally it's just in October, and so they've got the May and the October this year. It's been an awesome experience. So remind us one more time the title of the film.
So the title's name is Replaced.
And I assume obviously you're going to be festival circuiting it for a while, but eventually you're going to want to get it out there for people to see. For people who might be interested in following you, keeping track of those things, where can they find you?
So the film is actually currently up on YouTube, my YouTube channel.
Nice.
So unfortunately, Nick Campbell is a very, very common name.
Yeah.
So it might be a little bit difficult, but if you search Nick Campbell Films in YouTube, you will actually see a couple of pages pop up with that.
Nice.
Mine talks about, at the beginning, you'll see in the bio that it talks about like going back to study film, and you'll actually see Replaced right on the front page.
Beautiful.
So if anyone's interested in watching
Nick
it,
Campbell
it'll be right on
Films.
there. Nick Campbell Films, yes.
Awesome. Nick, thanks for taking a moment to talk with us. I got no rest for anybody. I got more movies I got to go watch. Thank you.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Right on.
Well, there you have it, everybody. 12 interviews, 19 filmmakers. We had such an awesome time at 2024 Chicago Horror Film Festival Part 1. Michelle and I are actually already talking about going back for 2024 Chicago Horror Film Festival Part 2 in October. We're going to kick it around, see if we're able to make it happen. If even only one of us is able to go, we'll probably be there. Guys, support independent filmmaking of any kind. Horror, comedy, is there an independent Western out there somewhere? There's got to be, right? Support, and I mean true indie, right? Like none of this like tiny budget, but still tiny for Hollywood, but still go watch people who are making movies for $1,000. Go watch people who are making movies for $5,000. Don't let anybody convince you that $200,000 is, it's still a small budget comparatively, but people with passion and drive are going out there and finding ways to make things that are incredible on a nothing budget, and they just need people to get a chance to see them. Like I told you at the beginning of the episode, track all of these guys with their links in the episode description. We will keep you updated on when these films become available for public consumption. Support independent horror. It's where a lot of real good shit is coming from. That's enough babbling, guys. I had a great time. Hope you enjoyed these interviews. Say goodnight, Michelle? Michelle? For more horror content, visit WeWatchShutter.com, where you'll find our world-famous, patent-pending Ghoul blog and Squelch files, as well as a schedule of upcoming episodes. Find us on social media at WeWatchShutter on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and I guess Twitter, if you're still doing that for whatever reason. You can email us. mail@WeWatchShutter.com is the address. mail@WeWatchShutter.com. You can even call and leave us a voicemail, 701-566-9510. No, really. 701-566-9510. Give it a shot. See what happens. We Watch Shutter is a production of Rat Factory Media.